Hey everyone, Scott Norris here from vRealize TV. Today I'm going to start a new series on learning VRO, so vRealize Orchestrator. It's something I get a lot of questions about. It's something that there's quite a lot of documentation and there's a wide community use, but still like the training, the basics, etc. So today I'm just going to introduce into the very basics of what is VRO and what are the different elements in it. And then each video series will work their way from that, as well as along the lines specific videos on specific functions and features. So let's get this kicked off. And what is VRO? So VRO is an orchestrator engine, just like many other out there. It's been around for some time, and in fact, VMware bundled VRO, or what it was called vCenter Orchestrator, with vSphere in version 4. So everyone who bought vSphere or vCenter got VRO, and VRO is probably the biggest product VMware released that no one knew about. Now, generally today, it's used in automation with VRA for vRealize Automation. It's coexists on the same appliance as vRealize Automation, but it also can come as a standalone appliance. Now, for VRA, what's really great and what gives it the edge over other CMPs is that it allows VRA to break out of the box and be able to do some extremely custom work while still being, leveraging the out-of-the-box capabilities that VRA has. And in fact, one of those capabilities is integrating with Orchestrator. So it is very powerful. So let's have a look. The interface we can see here is what VRO looks like. Now, dead set has not changed in like 10 years, since version 4 days. Still looks the same. And within here, we have plugins that get installed. Now, these plugins, everything here is out of the box, but you can get additional ones, like Kemp load balancers, F5, the Avnet plugins, for a lot of different things. But yeah, so we've got all these, and then each one of these have their objects within it. Like the Azure one, we can see the different resource groups, and all these are objects within VRO, and they can be referenced as objects. We've got our packages that allow us to package up workflows and actions and policies, etc., and then be able to sync them to another VRO or take them and put them in somewhere else. Configurations are just configuration elements, and I'll get in how to use those. Resources, again, resources are just like script files. They could be a JSON file that you can write to, or maybe even a script that you want to run on a machine with a find replace for specific elements. So that's what's in there. Actions are very important. An action should do one thing and one thing only, and is very modular, and we can see that they sit underneath a specific namespace, and that's how you reference when you want to call it. And we've got our workflows. So within here you get a library, so all your plugins will come with pre-built actions and workflows, and in here we can have a look and go PowerShell. It's got a bunch of samples invoking scripts. You've got vCenter, obviously comes with a lot of cluster manager, VM management. I want to be able to create a snapshot, etc. And if you look at them, they're just containing actions. Some will have sleeps in them, others will be a little bit more complex with scriptable tasks, and we'll get into what each one of those elements are there. So at the top you've got 3 different views. You've got run, which is of your basic, so you can see from the run screen if there's any running, etc. Schedule tasks, so you can schedule workflows to run specific times. We've also got policies, so haven't got any policies running in here, but policies are like you waiting for a specific event, like an SNMP trap, for example, and then you act, and you have a policy that acts on that trigger, essentially. We've got our workflows, and then we've got our actions. But under design, we get a bit of a different view where it actually gives us the action tab up there. We've got our config elements and our resource elements, our packages and our plugin. And then finally go to administrator. Now I have basically never gone in here before, and just so you know, this authorizations tab is a relic from like version 4 days and doesn't actually work anymore. The policy templates, which there's a couple, and then we've got our plugin. So from the admin level, you never even need to go into it. So generally you'll sit in the design when you're creating workflows. Alright, so let's have a look at workflow. Let's actually create a meaningful workflow. Like I love a hello world one, but that really doesn't justify in a workflow. So how about we go, we'll create a new one, and let's power on and power off a machine, for an example. Now, the great thing about the workflow engine is about reuse, being able to reuse these components. And you know, I can go, okay, let's go. I want to power. No, let's do off. Power off. VM. Now there will be already a power off VM workflow item, so I'll save this and we'll actually go and have a look. So you know, if you can reuse it, great, but I know it's going to be slightly different. As in, let's go vCenter, where is it? Can't even see it, there it is. Virtual machine, power management, here we go. Power off and wait. So you can say, yep, that's got a bunch of stuff, great. But the input to that is a virtual machine. So we'll have to go into here, we'll have to find our VM, depending which vCenter, you might have many vCenters, and you know, that's pretty garbage. It's not a nice user interface when you put it through to, say, VRA. So any workflow we can put into VRA as a catalog item for self-consumption. You want it to be done either by a nice drop down, you know, free text isn't ideal, but today I'm going to do free text. What about if I just want to put a string in? This is the name of the machine I want to shut down. And we'll reuse this power off and wait, but we'll put a little manipulation in before it. So we'll cancel that. We don't want to run that one. Not in its current state. So here we go, okay. We've got in here attributes. Now attributes are things that you use to transfer information between workflow elements. They can be hard coded by using the little lock here when you create one. Let's go and edit here. So you can create an attribute. You make it a constant by giving that, you give it a name. Actually, this is going to be our VM. There. Naming convention, you know, general coding naming conventions, camel case, etc. All good things to stick by. And then we can have our objects. Now we don't just have the primitive objects here. We can go. We've actually got a VC virtual machine. Object within there, and we haven't got that set20 value. So attributes can be bound as a configuration item. I'll get into more of them in later series, but we can actually choose a configuration item, meaning you can move it between VRA and you'll get whatever's set there. So maybe it might be a local variable from dev to prod, for example. But as long as the configuration element's the same, they'll get whatever the value is in there. So yeah, these are essentially used to manipulate the data and pass it around during the workflow. Then we've got inputs. So inputs are filled in at runtime, just as the name would explain. And in this case, we want, you know, VM name. Okay, and I want it to be a string. I'll just leave it as a free text at the moment. And you can make it mandatory, but we won't go there yet. And then we've actually got outputs of the workflow. So outputs are what we want it to output. In this case, I'm not outputting anything, but you know, in some cases you might want to output a specific value, especially if you're using the workflow to be nested within other workflows. So you know, you might have in this case we're going to go, you know, get virtual machine by name, and the output of a workflow might be the actual single VM object, as an example. And then we go to our schema. So this is where we create everything. So okay, I know we want to run that power on workflow, so we want to nest a workflow. So we can actually go into our workflows here. You can search up the top if you want, but I've forgotten what the name was. And we go to vCenter, we go to virtual machine, power management, and there's the power off and wait. So we want to use that, so I can drag that on here. Now this is really cool. So we have an option here. We can actually edit this, and we can see the visual binding. So that wants a VM in, but it's not giving us anything out, and we can bind anything to that. If I don't actually have anything here, I could drag that down to here, and it would create the attribute for me. Now you can see the attributes are the same on both sides, both in and out, because you can manipulate them during the workflow run. You can't change an input at runtime, but obviously you can output to an output multiple times, and obviously the final time you output to it is the time that it is what it's going to equal when the workflow runs. But you can't input and output. So we'll can do the same thing, but this setup. So this is like a wizard. So you might drag a workflow or some item on there that might have 20 inputs. You can open up this and it'll be split in. This is inputs, and it'll have outputs at the bottom, and then you can choose what you want to do. You want to map it to something that already exists. Do you want to create a new one? And if it does, it'll automatically have a little green plus there, which will say, I'm going to create this one for you. You can skip it, which essentially sets it to null, and you can set it to a value, or you can make it an input. So in this case, it is actually mapping. I don't want to create a new one. See, there's a little green plus there. Because I changed it, I actually want to go to that one, which is my pre-existing, and I can go promote, and then that will visually map all those for you. So I can, that one actually, there we are, sorry, took too long. You can see there, so that's saying visual there. I can actually go in here and cut that, go in that, and then remap it if I wanted to. So, that's really handy, being how to use it. And within this one workflow, you can see the input for that has no outputs, and it's got no exception bindings. So that's cool, we want to use that. But now we want to use that string input. So for that, we can see we've got a bunch of generic things. We've got scriptable, they're all very descriptive in what they do. A switch is like a case statement. We can do asynchronous workflow, which is meaning we could drag that on there and do this, and it would actually fire off this workflow, but our major workflow will continue to run. Action elements, notes, exceptions, and scriptable tasks is just, we want to write a script. Now, vRO runs JavaScript. That's its language that it uses. And in here, we go, okay, we want to, let's use the visual binding. We want to use this as an input. So, change that. Great, so that's now an input. If I go over here, there it is. And we can see that it's there, and they'll actually be highlighted as such. So I want to get all the machines, and I want to grab the one that I want that matches my string. We're not going to put any error checking in today, but we can use the plugin type, which is this, which is great. Some, depending on the plugin, depends what sort of methods and etc. that it's got. But we want to do, all VMs equals that. Then we want to go, okay, for each VM in all VMs. We can go if VM.name, and name is function. Now you can actually look here and we can go, okay, we want to search virtual machine. Oh, I spelled that wrong. and we can actually search the API. That's a bunch of zones, VC, virtual machine, and there's the type there. If we look at the type, it shows us what the properties are of it, virtual machine name, and if we look at the actual scripting class, you can go into here and you can go, okay, well, these are all the different properties in column. We can see that, okay, you can have a look and you can see what the return type for any of these are. But in this case, we'll just go VM name equals our input there. And then if that's the case, I want to do, we've got to have an output too, forgot about that. So we need this as our output. And then we can go, this equals VM. So we want that to equal the object. Now that's just a simple for each statement, nothing special there. I'm pretty sure it's .name, but we'll soon find out. And then that should feed in the power off. So let's give this a debug. I don't know what one I'm going to use. It's a VM that's not important. Yeah, this one doesn't look important. I'll just copy that because I'm lazy. Go into here and we go, okay, we want to debug, or we validate it. Yep, looks good. That'll give us back any errors. Yeah, debug, VM name. Alright, let's put in that and we hit submit. So we'll be able to see the info there and where it's up to. Oh, it's gone into powering off. Oh, look at that. Done. Worked like a charm. Now we can go, okay, great. Let's power that back on. And this is where you could, grow this bigger and actually have another selection. Do you want to power it on and off, and then branch depending. Let's go into here and we go, okay, well, we can add a bit more scripting into this. We can go, what do you want to see that running down? We can go system.debug. You can do system.log. I like using debug because it doesn't show up in the normal logs. And then we go vm.name. That should print out all the VM names, and then in here we can go system.log. And have a look at that. So that we can, let's go debug there again. Yep, we'll use the same one. We should see, there they all are. So it happens pretty quick, this one. But you can see it's listing out all the names of my VMs. And then when it finally gets to my one, it should go, we found it. I did see it, there it is. Yep. Found it. And then it force stopped the VM, and that should have stopped it again. Done. You can see that's a very simple use case, but then we can look at the presentation, and in the presentation you can actually change this. So you can say, virtual machine name. You can go back to schema. You can go to debug. We can see that's changed up there. Instead of just VM name being a nasty thing, it's just a plain text readable. And what's great is we go, okay, well, why don't we put this in the VRA just for something to tack on the end of this series, and we can continue in the next video. And we can go to VRA. So I was just about to update it the other day, but I haven't yet. Leave page. Don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, extra slow today. My poor lab is not coping anymore. Alright, go to design. Access. New. We're going to select that new I call it power off VM. Not done on design canvas. Blueprint. Great, and you can see that that formatting has come through. So great thing for XS. And we go no. Done. Power off VM. Publish. I'll go to catalog management. There it is. Let's send it to a. Let's put in templates. Let's turn the machine on again. Pull machine. We can get a catalog. Templates, power off VM, there it is. Request that, boom, machine name, submit, boom, and then we'll see this actually run. That's from our last run, there it is. That's run, and that should have powered off the machine again. There it is. Awesome. Working as a charm. Alright, next time we'll have a look at, I guess, basic workflow items, as well as having a look at some actions. Alright, cheers. Bye.